The future of the MCU and specifically the new Avengers lineup is a big question mark for Marvel fans. In this video, I want to go over what various Marvel insiders are saying about these questions, and I want to speculate about who I think will be in charge of the new Avengers. What's up, everybody? It's Josh. Welcome back to the channel. Smash that like button like the Hulk, and let's get right into this video. So let's just get this out of the way first. This is not like a news video. This video is going to be filled with speculation, with rumors, and with scoops that for the most part have been unconfirmed. However, the inspiration for doing this video is sort of a 1-2 punch of a couple of different scoopers. Number one, this all has to do with the ultimatum scoop that Jeremy Conrad recently ran on MCU Cosmic. And of course, I did an interview with him the other day talking about this scoop. Highly recommend you check that out if you have not. And the second punch comes from Grace Randolph, who on Twitter actually refuted Jeremy's scoop about Ultimatum and went as far as to say that she heard that Captain Marvel will not be leading the Avengers the way many of us think. So here's what Grace said here. She said, I did some digging and the Ultimatum rumors are false, as is the Captain Marvel definitely leading the Avengers. Now, I want to stop here for a second and say that Adam from Fanjecture and I spoke about this on the morning stream earlier today. That's our live stream that's over on our live streaming channel. We broadcast to Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every day, Monday through Friday. You should be there. So go check out that stream if you want our full thoughts. We get into a lot of different things about Brie Larson, about her old comments, about the Marvel fan base. If you're looking for the full details and just our unabated thoughts, go check out that live stream. But I did find it interesting that Grace was sort of refuting the scoop from Jeremy Conrad and saying that Captain Marvel will not lead the Avengers. Now, first of all, let me just say, when it comes to Ultimatum, I 1000% believe Jeremy Conrad. Go check out that interview if you don't believe me. He talks about the evidence that he has. He talks about how sure he is that it is being developed. And it's important to mention here that the project is in development. That does not mean that it will ever actually see the light of day, or it could have a ton of different changes to it, and it could end up looking nothing like Ultimatum from Marvel Comics. But either way, this project is being developed, and Jeremy thinks it will definitely involve Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four, and that element from the comic book story will be adapted. But let's dig into this a little bit more, because when it comes to Captain Marvel, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that Kevin Feige really likes that character, really likes Brie Larson, and may have originally intended for her to be the next Robert Downey Jr. of the MCU. And I know that statement causes some of you to cringe and yell, and you're already typing your comments out on the keyboard. And some of you other people are probably pretty pumped about it. You like Brie Larson and you like Captain Marvel. We've got an eclectic, nerdy family here of all different opinions, and all of you are welcome. But let me explain my feelings on this, and I think it can sort of explain why Grace is getting the information that she is getting. Now, I frankly do not think there will ever be another Robert Downey Jr. or Iron Man type figure in the MCU. Frankly, the MCU is too big. There's too many crazy characters coming into it, and it's all expanding at once. So when you have characters like Professor X, like Reed Richards, like Doctor Doom, like Magneto, all coming into the fold for the MCU, then there just frankly will never be another character like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, who is such a big personality, the first big superhero to make their appearance on the planet Earth, and their technology then trickles out to have all of these different effects. I mean, think about it. Tony touched the lives of so many different characters within the MCU, whether they actually interacted with him or not. And that just will never happen again, because there's going to be so many different characters that will have their own effect on the MCU and be their own big presence. And so there will never be a singular character like that again, including Captain Marvel. Also, and this is important to note, especially when we're thinking about who will be in charge of the Avengers, who will be in charge of the MCU, I also believe, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest, that there are several different teams coming to the MCU. This includes the Thunderbolts, the Young Avengers, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Agents of Atlas, Sword, and on and on. In fact, Jeremy talked about in our interview how there's been a rumor for a long time that some kind of an event and or film that has tons of different MCU teams all in it will take place before the next Avengers movie, which he actually believes could be the Ultimatum project. And so going back to Grace's scoop, I mean, I think it's fair to say that she might not be the face of the MCU. She might not be in charge of the Avengers in the same way that Robert Downey Jr. was, because the MCU is just different. And perhaps that is what she is hearing. She is reporting that Captain Marvel will not definitively be in charge of the Avengers, because there will be other characters also in charge of the Avengers. And frankly, nobody's going to be in charge of the Avengers like Tony was, because there's never going to be another Tony-like figure. And so even if she is given the mantle of being in charge of the Avengers, and you just hate that and you just can't stand that, I would breathe a little easy, because there's going to be so much other stuff in the MCU. There's never going to be just the limelight and the lightning rod of all the attention on a singular person. That's never going to happen in the MCU again. And I also find it very interesting that Jeremy himself, in the interview I did with him, talks about what a big role Doctor Strange is likely to play with the Avengers. He even talked about how Captain Marvel is still going to be a big part of it, but Doctor Strange is almost going to equally be a big part of the Avengers. And perhaps that information is also being relayed to Grace, and that's what Grace is saying. She's saying, no, she's not going to be in charge of the Avengers, because her, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and maybe even Spider-Man are sort of all going to make up the leadership of the Avengers. And that's kind of what I believe. I believe that Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and Spider-Man are the perfect people to take over the Avengers, to be sort of that leadership group. I mean, Doctor Strange is obvious. He just forged a great relationship with a lot of the different people that are on the Avengers team. He obviously had a big connection to Tony Stark. He's very powerful. He's very insightful. He should have sort of a look at what is going on the globe. It just makes sense. He would be a person that would be on the Avengers, and he's also not going to be afraid to insert his opinion and tell people what needs to be done. And it's a similar thing with T'Challa. T'Challa just forged a relationship with a lot of the different Avengers members. He just saved the world with the Avengers. I think it would just make sense that, given the fact that the Avengers are going to eventually be needed again, he would be the kind of person that would step up to the plate. I also think, on a side note, it's really important to have Black Panther on the Avengers team because of what they will do with Namor and pushing him to be associated with the X-Men and the mutants, so that they can eventually do the Avengers versus X-Men, Wakanda versus Namor and Atlantis kind of beef. Even though that might be in Black Panther 2, I think you want to continue that beef moving forward, and having T'Challa be a part of the Avengers and Namor be associated with the mutants is a nice thing to just keep on the shelf for later. And when it comes to Captain Marvel, here's my deal on this. I think that she will be in charge of the Avengers, and she'll be a big member of the Avengers, but I'm starting to believe that she'll be in charge of sort of the cosmic side of the Avengers. I mean, think about it. We've heard a lot about S.W.O.R.D. being introduced into the MCU. There's rumors that there will be a Disney Plus show talking about S.W.O.R.D. and dealing with those characters that will lead right into Captain Marvel 2, which might be another version of Secret Invasion. We've already got S.W.O.R.D. teased with Nick Fury creating some kind of a space station out there, and obviously Carol Danvers' big connection to Earth is via Nick Fury. And so it would just make all the sense for Captain Marvel to be in charge of sort of the cosmic side of the Avengers, which to me would probably take her off the planet Earth. And so I almost see this thing where she's technically an Avenger, she's with the Avengers and has a leadership role, but she's sort of in charge of the division that is out in space. And Spider-Man's a big deal too. I mean, it's so obvious that Kevin Feige really wants Spider-Man to be sticking around in the MCU, and I do think he will end up being in the next Avengers movie. I think that's why Marvel is being so nice to Sony. And for many of the same reasons that these other characters just make sense to be leaders on the Avengers, same thing's true of Spider-Man. His connection with Tony Stark is obviously a very, very big deal, but he also fought alongside the Avengers when they defeated Thanos. Like, other new members of the Avengers would look up to him and would treat him as a leader. And so I would say those are the characters that are likely to make up your leadership group of the new Avengers once they're eventually established. But with the other characters, it gets really interesting. I mean, I think some of these people are going to retire. Like, I've heard some rumblings that War Machine and Don Cheadle might be done in the MCU, and I can see why he would retire and not be being heroic anymore. I think characters like Hulk and Hawkeye are still going to be in the MCU, but probably not be Avengers anymore. I mean, Hulk's going to help establish She-Hulk, which will eventually let her be a part of the Avengers, as we know from the casting sheet is on the table. And it's a similar thing with Hawkeye. He's creating the Kate Bishop Hawkeye, who will then go on to be a part of the Young Avengers in all likelihood. And so characters like that might not be on the Avengers roster anymore. I think Wanda and Ant-Man are likely to stay on the Avengers, but they're not necessarily the leadership types. Even though both of them are capable of doing amazing things and are huge assets for the team, they're not really the leadership type. And so I think they would potentially be on the team, but not be super involved and not really be trying to exert their opinion on whatever situation the Avengers are facing. And frankly, I think by the time we get to the next Avengers movie, there'll be a ton of new people. I mean, Shang-Chi's likely to be on the team. Some of the Eternals will likely be on the team. It's possible Yelena as Black Widow will be on the team. Maybe Odinson or maybe even Natalie Portman as Thor could be on the team. And there'll be a ton of characters that we don't even know are being introduced that could end up on the team. And so it will be a big cast of a ton of new characters. And believe it or not, some of the characters like Captain Marvel and Doctor Strange, even though they're relatively new to the 10 years of the MCU, I guess 11 plus years now, they are not new when compared to all the brand new faces that we will meet in the MCU over the next couple of years. So it'll be very important to have older characters that can sort of pass the baton and that have had relationships with Captain America and Iron Man, because it all started with them. So those are my thoughts on the new Avengers squad and what some of the insiders are saying. There's sort of this thing going on between Jeremy's scoop and Grace's scoop. And honestly, I believe Jeremy's scoop is real. And I think that Grace is getting real information. She's just possibly interpreting it in a way that's, you know, making her say things that I don't necessarily agree are true, but I guess I'm just giving her a lot of credit there. I want to know what you think about this situation. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comment section below. And now let's shout out Pop Champion. Indeed, Flash Thompson is the member of the high school Peter Parker squad that eventually gets the symbiote and becomes Venom in Marvel Comics. So shout out to you, Pop Champion. And now let's ask another nerd card question before we get out of here. I want to know, during the events of Civil War II in Marvel Comics, what side did Spider-Man take? Was he Team Iron Man or was he Team Captain Marvel? Answer that question in the comment section below. If you absolutely need more nerdy content in your life, you can click or tap over there to get lost down a nerdy rabbit hole on some of our content, or come on by to our live streaming channel at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, where we blurb about all crazy nerdy things. Like this video if you liked it, or if you want to take your support to the next level, join the list of awesome people you see below, and check out our Patreon for some awesome behind-the-scenes content. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next